Mr. Remy, can we have buildings and grounds report, please?
Sure. All right, so on January 20th, we had a building and ground meeting. We had 6 topics on the agenda. Number 1 was the facility use request. Number 2, Thurgood Marshall renovations. Number 3 was middle school elevator. Number 4 was central office relocation. Number 5 was ESIP business case projects, and number 6 was other. So number 1, the facility use request. So far, we only had just one. So it was in regards to the basketball courts behind the middle school, and which is the Prospect courts, Donald Henry courts. So we only had one request, which was a nonprofit, Charity Kings. But before moving forward, we decided that we want to continue to look forward to see what can we do about our current lease that we currently have for that use of the courts. So we're gonna go and double back, see what can we do, what kind of updates we can make to that lease, if we want to keep it or if we want to just sell it or have someone else take it over. So that's what we decided. So we'll come back with you guys with an update on that. Number 2 was Thurgood Marshall renovations.
Right. We're not looking to sell the courts. We were going back to the city to see if they wanted to enter into another agreement with us or continue the agreement that they had with us to maintain the courts. But correct. The courts still belong to the school district.
Correct.
Okay.
Right. That's what you were asking me, right? Or you?
No, I was just clarifying.
Oh. Oh yes. Well, the current lease is up as of what, May 20. It's been up.
Yeah, their current lease is just a maintenance agreement lease. It's not something for sale or to buy.
Okay.
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 So Thurgood Marshall renovations. I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Oh no, you can clarify on that. Number 2, Thurgood Marshall renovations. The contractors continue to report damage done to first and second floor classrooms at Thurgood Marshall Elementary School. Demo included removing materials down to the studs at a cost of approximately $150,000. The repair rebuild, approximately $240,000, is about 50% complete. The contractor expects to finish in early to mid-March, provided there are no supply delays. Costs are covered by our insurance carrier, less a $5,000 deductible. All right, cool. Any questions, concerns about that? Anybody? All right. Moving forward to number 3, upper elementary school elevator. Bid for replacement of the elevator was advertised on January 15th. A walkthrough with the district architect and potential bidders was conducted on January 20th. Bid opening is February 9th. The project is expected to take several months to complete. All right, number 4, central office relocation. The committee discussed options for relocating central office, including the use of the 3rd floor for Barack Obama or a new modular prefab build on district property. Renovation costs are for the new or a new build for approximately $2.5 million. The superintendent noted concerns related to unknown costs as renovations are started based on the age of the building, as well as liability concerns, which I understood. Her concerns were very valid, you know. But so we decided to bring that to the table to see what, as you know, to the whole board, what do you guys think about that? And what do you guys think about renovating Barack Obama School? You know? So I would like to open the floor. Can I open the floor at this point? You know, take any questions, concerns, because this is, you know, very important. You
Do you
know,
want to finish your agenda and then we can open up in your question session? Like just the ESIP and then the other about the Asbury Park Little League?
Because I feel like if you want to clear it out now, you know, clear, you know, any questions, concerns now, get it over with now. You know, move forward. I'm just saying.
Finish the agenda, and then when we have questions, we're gonna have questions and answers right after you finish the agenda. So let's do item 5 and 6, and then we'll finish it.
Okay. All right. So number 5, ESIP business case projects. Administration participated in a business case meeting with our energy services company, ESG, and reviewed and recommended energy efficiency projects. Recommended projects were estimated between $5 to $6 million and included new building lighting, building weatherization, plug load controls, building automation systems, and classroom unit ventilator replacement. The plan and related saving estimate is being reviewed by a third-party engineer. And number 6, which was other, we discussed Asbury Park Little League has reached out to Mr. Sosa regarding work they would like to do with the Little League field. They will submit a letter detailing a donation of services. And we also discussed that the district received a letter of interest, you know, from Charity Kings, which we discussed previously with number 1, facility use request. And that was basically our building grounds meeting. So, any questions or concerns? Go ahead, Mr.
If I can just confirm, and it might not be you, Remy, it might be Ms. Gray or Mr. Hastings, the elevator expense will come out of our operating budget in effect. Is that correct, or do we have money set aside for that?
Yes, we've set money aside for that. The estimated cost is between $225,000 and $250,000, and we do have that money set aside in our construction account to cover those costs.
Okay. Any other questions?
Sorry, Remy, go ahead.
No, I was just asking any other questions or concerns, but you can go ahead. Sorry.
Thanks. I want to know who's the third-party engineer that's reviewing the plan and the related savings estimate for the different ESIP projects. Do we have one? Do we have one already there?
Yes, the board approved DLB out of Eatontown, I believe it is. I think they're over on Industrial Way there, and they're working with our architect.
Thanks.
Madam President, can I make a suggestion?
Yes, go ahead.
Can we finish quickly the committee reports and then go back to Barack Obama's relocation, the relocation of central office issue, since it might take a few minutes?
Okay, so what I'll just do is put finance at the end because finance would probably go over that too. So We'll do finance last, and then we'll discuss that. That being said, are there any more questions or comments for buildings and grounds? No. Okay. Can we have sports, athletics, Breach?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, finally. We met a couple weeks ago. We did not meet in December, so it was quite a lengthy meeting. If you had a chance to look over our minutes and have any questions, basically, we are going to have a winter sports season. It's going to be broken up into 2 sections, season 2, season 3. First, there won't be any cheerleading, there won't be any participation by the community. It's just going to be the coaches, players, officials, and so on. It's very limited, but at least they're going to be able to have some sort of sports season as opposed to what we had last year. We also spoke about trying to make up for not having an awards banquet last year to do something virtual. And we're looking into that right now. Into some other facets of trying to raise some money.
Hey, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I'm hearing a really bad echo. I don't know if anyone else is hearing that.
Is it me?
I don't think it's you, but I think somebody else has their wasn't muted. So now I hear you wonderfully. Sorry.
Oh, thank you. So again, it was a very lengthy meeting. If you had a chance to look over the minutes, I don't want to, drag this on too long because we have a lot to go over tonight. So if anybody has any questions regarding the minutes, as far as our winter sports season or anything moving forward, please feel free to ask me and I'll try to do my best to answer your questions. I know Mrs. Gray, we looked into something I want to touch on briefly as far as having some type of counseling for our students to look forward to college prep, and also once they get into college to have some type of monitoring. I don't know, maybe Mrs. Gray will speak on that later, but besides our academic aspect of it, we're also trying to look to help our students to look into the athletic aspect of it, to combine both. So if anyone has any questions, feel free.
I have a comment. Connie, I think we didn't go over the fact that the ceremony that you're trying to have is also going to attempt to honor some of the kids that weren't honored last year.
Yeah, that's it's going to be both. We want to honor the kids that weren't honored last year, and also honor the students from this year. So we're working on that right now because last year's students they were not recognized. They haven't received their awards yet, so that's in the process. So we'll probably do a combination of both.
Any additional questions or comments? Okay, can Ms. Cook, curriculum and instruction, please?
Good evening, everyone. Okay, item number 11. So MLK Upper Elementary School is looking to have their own esports club, which is electronic sports. They will have their own competitive game league, which teams will consist of students who compete against each other in-house after school. Participation will be centered around their own PBIS program. Students will need consistently maintain a positive behavior, complete classroom assignments, and sustain academic efforts. The program will also encourage career paths in media, i.e. Podcasting, video editing, journalism, as well as opportunities to earn college scholarships and enhance opportunities in the STEM field. The estimated cost is $15,000, including staffing, license, equipment funds will come out of our SIA account. That's a student investment account grant. Item number 13 is the approval to post for 2 curriculum writers to update existing curriculum to reflect the 2020 NJSLA standards in science, visual and performing arts, social studies, including the Amistad integration in civics, the 21st century learning and world languages. Each curriculum writer will not exceed 50 hours each. The cost will not exceed $4,100. These are state required updates. And item number 14, it's approval 14 of the CTE engineering academic student and Mr. Kevin Gould to work in collaboration with the Deal Lake Commission on a water quality and engineering project beginning February 2021 through March 2021, weather permitting, and there is no cost to the district. Does anyone have any questions?
Okay, no questions or comments. We're gonna move on to finance. Mr. LaRocca?
Okay, thank you.
Madam President, do you want to do policy before that? Because policy hasn't
Oh,
gone.
I'm sorry. Joe, Mr. Murillo?
Hey there. So policy is not much to report. We had our first meeting of the year. There are some second readings, Strauss Esme Alert 221. There's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, about 13 policies and regulations from that alert that we briefly discussed. And they're on this month's agenda for second reading. There was PNR 7510, use of school facilities, that was referred over to Buildings and Grounds. So, and Mr. Remy spoke about that before. So, and then we went over some procedures in place for policy. We discussed the status of the policy regarding weapons, related to where we are in having a first reading on that. And those were kind of the main topics. So if anyone has any questions or comments, any of the other members of the committee, if I missed anything that you feel is important, please speak now. Okay.
Okay.
My report.
Mr. LaRocca?
Okay, for finance, thanks. I think we've got then two big issues to discuss. So let me just briefly say the administration's continuing to work to address the legislative audit recommendations, and that our purchase power agreement, if you saw, we got some good press on that. We have an agreement for a zero rate for what our electric will cost with Solar Landscape. Board attorney has approved it. Solar Landscape's putting together their plans, and they will submit those for permits, and that'll be the next step on that project. That gets us to the 2022 budget. Again, we discussed what we'll be doing in light of the S2 bill, which currently is reducing our funding through 2025. The reduction in funding for next year is going to be approximately 5.8 million. And just to remind those or point out to everyone, there's two components to this. Under state formulas and rules for school district funding, we're both losing funding, and the state, through a formula, says what the municipality should be paying in supporting the district. The formula, and this is a moving target from when we've started, but obviously, as you know, resources in Asbury have gone up. So the local fair share that the municipality should be paying in taxes toward the school district, according to the state, is $21,900,000. We're currently paying $10,400. We've been increasing that number, and you can see how far we've got to go. I'm going to come back to an exhibit we've got in just a second. In terms of balancing the budget for next year, we'll still have somewhere around at least $3 million to cut. The administration discussed we have had a number of retirements and resignations that are potential savings that have come up in the past few months by not replacing those individuals, but reassigning. We can save in terms of the 2022 budget. We also discussed outsourcing certain areas. We can discuss that further. There was some preliminary information that Mr. Hastings can provide if need be. And we're also, I was going to, as head of the committee, reach out to local legislators on behalf of the board request from either our last meeting or the meeting before. So let me point out, I did touch base with our state senator. I pointed out that we had seen in our state board newsletter that there were some discussions going on about extending the time period for S2. He was not involved in those discussions, but he mentioned that he would be supportive of our request to extend the time period by which we have to meet the requirements, and that he would bring that up on our behalf. He would coordinate with our assembly people, so we don't have to contact them separately. He just requested some bullet points be given to him in writing so that he could kind of see the context, and we can do it from the context of Asbury and then what we were requesting. So I think, I mean, I could work with Ms. Gray or Mr. Hastings if you like, or we could have Adam, however you want to handle that. But we said, well, we would get them some written bullet points to discuss. And I was assuming where we've been, what we've done, the difficult impact on the district and the community if we maintain the same schedule in light of, the districts and the community have both had to deal with a global pandemic and all those issues.
Mr. LaRocca, I believe Mr. Weiss has been working on a letter from our last discussion last month in regards to that. Have you seen it yet?
Actually, if I can, I did have some discussions, if I'm not mistaken, with Mr. Hastings about that, as well as, I can't remember if I had a discussion with Madam President about that as well, with regard to next steps. I'm happy to discuss it offline, but as of now, I have not written a letter, and I await further guidance from the board as to next steps.
Yeah, I'm open to however the board wants to handle it.
If I may, I would support, I think we should work on something with all the facts that we can gather regarding our community, the effects of S2 and the effects of the recent COVID situation, along with the economics and the status of our community in regards to maybe some relief, maybe another year, and to extend S2 if we could. I think it's a good idea. Things are different than they were 40 years ago or 5 years ago.
I guess in terms of just getting the bullet points together, if Dominic can just quickly reach out to Superintendent Gray and Jeff, and I guess if you wanted to, anyone else on your committee, just so you can get something over to the legislation, to the legislators specifically, you can do that.
Okay. Okay, that's that one. What I wanted to do is open it up and have the board have a discussion with regard to giving the administration a strong sense of what's supported in terms of a revenue increase. So as we move through February, we have a better sense of the target for balancing the budget. Along those lines, I don't know if everyone was able to look at the attachment Mr. Hastings sent out about the effect in light of what the current ratables are in Asbury. Did the best we can trying to do this early on, what the annual increase would be for a taxpayer on assessed value at different levels of revenue increase. So we decided as a committee, we'd look at 1.5 million revenue increase, 2 million, and a 2.5 million revenue increase. And you can see if we just look at the average assessed value of a home in Asbury, which you might recall, if you look at that number now, the average home is assessed at almost $460,000. It's a big jump from last year. You can see what the effect would be at those different levels. So for example, if we were to say we would increase revenue to the district by 1.5 million, the annual increase to someone with a home assessed at 460,000 would be $135 or $11 monthly. At 2 million, the average assessed home, the increase would be $249 or $20.76 monthly. At 2.5 million, the average assessed home would have an increase of $363 or $30 monthly. Now, we kind of started the process years back, and based on where the formula was putting us in terms of what the municipality would have to pay, we thought doing about 2 million every year would get us there. Last year, in light of just at that point getting hit with the pandemic, not knowing what was going to happen, remember that we did a lesser amount of 1.5 million. I'll open it up to the floor without first saying what I support, but I can't help myself and have to say I would request that board members not consider the 1.5. We can't fall that far behind. Perhaps the timeline will be extended, perhaps not, but I throw that out there to you, and I don't know if you need the numbers again or if you can see the exhibits, but I'd like to throw it out to get a sense of what people are supporting.
I have a question, Mr. LaRocca. It's Barbara Lisinski.
Yeah.
I was wondering, the numbers that you have here, is that for the 2021 equalization equalized value, or is that not including the new ratables?
It includes the new ratables. I've got to defer to Jeff on any details beyond that, but we were able to get an update on the ratables. The ratables now, according to this chart in Asbury Park, are up to $2 billion.
I just looked today, and I have one that's about 12 million more than what you have today. I looked one up from the county website.
That was 2,022,000,000.
I have $2,032,744,575, but I don't know if that includes the new properties coming online from pilots.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that could be. I think what everyone is going to have to consider is what we're trying to jump on this earlier. It's going to be ballparking it. So as you look at these numbers, don't get caught up in looking for specificity and perfection on the numbers. The ratables, I guess, could go up by the time we actually get finalization from the city and maybe other factors. But what we tried to do as a committee is give you more detail than you've had in the past. So the administration has been helpful in putting this together so that there's a little more you can see, but it's out there. Things could change a bit.
No, I agree with your 2 million proposal, because you don't want to hit everybody at the end with an astronomical tax increase. It's better to do it gradually, and hopefully we can get an extension.
Others?
Dominic, what did the legislators say in terms of if they weren't involved in the discussions? Are they planning to get involved? Like, what was the outcome of how they're going to advocate for us?
Yeah, he represented that if he got a little more information in writing, he would advocate for us. He wasn't aware of the discussions going on currently about school budgets that we had seen in the state board newsletter.
Was there any discussion about the extension idea?
The extent,
like extending us to, instead of it being like a 5-year deal.
yeah, yes, that would be, that was the only discussion that our request. It's not like S2 is going to go away, that we were taking a more realistic approach, that it would just be extending the time period with the idea, like Barb just mentioned, if you wait too long on these increases, you're going to have a disastrous year at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Is that it for the discussion on that? All right, Mr. Lauterocker, do you have anything else?
Well, I mean, I don't know how you, I mean, I would actually throw out splitting the difference between 2 million and 2.5 and doing 2,250,000. So all I heard was I had Barb at 2 million. And so I'm just going to throw that out to everybody, which again, ballparking it, a monthly increase in taxes of about $25 for the average taxpayer.
I agree with you, Mr.
Yeah, if you're
LaRocca,
about
I tend to,
25.
I have to agree with you, Mr. LaRocca. I tend to agree on, the 2.5. I'd settle at the 2.2.5 so that we're not caught at the end having to do 5 million.
Question.
Yeah, I mean, there could be an argument to go 2.5 now, yeah.
Ms. Breach?
Yeah, Mr. LaRocca, what is that percentage wise as far as the increase? You said $25 per average household. What is that? Is that 2%, 3%?
That's $25 on, help me out here, Jeff, but I think,
Because that's what people are going to ask, what percentage is going up.
right.
That would be monthly $25.
So that's
correct?
25 monthly, right, which is going to be, okay, I got to do some math here.
So you know what the residents are going to ask? They're going to ask, what's our taxes going up per year? Is it going to be 2%, 3%? I know we're capped out of how much we can actually raise, percentage wise.
I get 11.6. What do you get, Jeff?
I had 14%.
Yeah, we're not capped at 2 because of our situation, Ms. Breach.
Yeah. You get 14 on the 2.25 or the 2.5?
At 2.5, $363 is 14% increase from the 25.85.
Okay, so at 2.5, it's 14. At 2.25, it's 11.6.
That's a lot.
So it's actually a lesser tax rate increase.
Well, no, the rate itself is going up, right? Because the value is not increasing as much as the actual tax increase. So the rate is going up. And you're looking at roughly going from 0.56 to at 2.5 was 0.64 or $100 of assessed value. But again, I think, as Mr. LaRocca said, looking at the annual increase, looking at a monthly increase to the taxpayers is certainly one way to present the information. And we can certainly provide maybe additional information that you can have on a tear sheet or something.
But as Breach asked the question, right, that as an individual just saying, well, what's the increase for the school portion of my taxes? It's ranging between 11 and 14%.
Okay, do we
So- I'll just go back with that range to the committee then, and we'll decide, or we'll talking to Ms. Gray and Ms. Morris and everybody.
I think that's a good idea, Dominic.
Okay.
I
So
think you've got the right thinking on it in terms of splitting the difference between the 2 and the 2.5.
Okay, thanks.
Madam President, can I make a suggestion? It's Barbara Lisinski.
Go ahead, Barbara.
We should close the work session maybe and then open public, and we can continue the discussion after some of our agenda about Barack Obama Elementary School and central office.
Yeah, we also have the board goals, board goals, but we should do at least an public participation part of this meeting and then close it.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely, yes.
So, is it right here? Yeah, public. Where's the policy? Public participation in accordance to the board policy 0161. The public participation is now open. Please state your name and your address, and you can ask your question. You have 3 minutes.
Again, we have the public comment email address, public comment at asburypark.k12.nj.us. And we have the comments or hand raise function of the web event here. Or if you're on the phone, you can hit, I believe it's *3, and you'll be put into the queue. And then when we unmute you, you'll hear the statement that you've been unmuted. So we'll pause to give that a chance to queue up. Mr. Brannigan, do you see any comments from callers?
At this time, no one has raised their hand.
Okay, and we have no public comment email.
Okay, so we're closing public participation.
At 7:05.
At this time, can I have a motion to close the workshop session?
Move it.
I'll move it.
That's Grillo.
Okay.
All right, so we have a motion to close, moved by Mr. Grillo, second by Ms. Lozinski. All in favor?
Hold on.
Aye.
Hold on. Just raise their hand.
Any opposed?
Just raise their hand.
We're gonna have to hold them for the next meeting you just adjourned.
All right. In accordance with the provisions of the Open Public Meeting Act, NJSA 10-4-6 PL 1975 C 231 S1 amended 2006 C 70 S2, the Asbury Park Board of Education has provided adequate notice of this meeting by sending a notice of time, date, location, and to the extent known, the agenda of this meeting to the Asbury Park Press, the new poster, on January 8th, 2021 via email. Copies of this notice has also been placed at the Administration Building, Bulletin Board, District Schools, Asbury Park Municipal Building, Asbury Park Police Department, and filed at the City Clerk on January 8th, 2021. Asbury Park School District will provide all students with a comprehensive and progressive education where everyone possesses the skill and character to succeed in a diverse, evolving global society. Roll call, please, Ms. Davis.
Ms. Alves Anderson?
Here.
Ms. Breach?
Here.
Ms. Cook?
Here.
Mr. Grillo?
Here.
Mr. LaTorraca?
Here.
Mr. Remy?
Here.
Mr. Saunders? Ms. Lozinski?
Here.
Ms. Etienne?
Here. Can we stand for the flag salute, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So do we have presentations? No. So the superintendent originally had a presentation, but I really think that it should be tabled and presented to Buildings and Grounds with any additional information that you have.
Well, it's under my superintendent's report.
Okay.
The superintendent's presentation, I thought you were asking if there were any other presentations.
Okay.
As in number 5, there are none.
Okay.
I just have my presentation. All right. Yeah, that's about the board relocation.
Okay, so, I really wanted to be moved to, buildings and grounds, but, go ahead.
So I'm gonna unmute.
Good evening. Maybe I shouldn't. Okay. Good evening. Tonight, I'm going to just present as was shared by Board Member Mr. Remy in our Buildings and Grounds meeting. I had made a recommendation and I shared in the Buildings and Ground meeting that I wanted to add the rationale for the recommendation in terms of the relocation of the central office. By way of context, the recommendation that I was making is based on a timeline and our ability to move within said timeframe. We have a lease agreement that exists for our current location, and that lease agreement ends April 2022. And so in looking at that timeline and making some preparations and being fiscally responsible, I looked at and enlisted the support of our district architects to ground whatever recommendation that I would make that has an impact on the district's day-to-day operations based on data and metrics that were provided from our district architect. So I will direct the attention of the board to one of the items, attachment 1, I refer to it as, where I had our district architects review the building. A walkthrough was conducted, and in the review of that building, as was shared with me by our board president, the desire of the board at that time of the conversation was on the relocation of the central office to the 3rd floor of the Barack Obama building. In understanding and knowing that, but also in understanding and knowing that there would be a significant impact, and we want to be fiscally responsible in terms of time frame, in terms of the structure, in terms of making sure that we have all of the necessary components to make our transition. I also looked at the cost for a modular prefab unit that could be housed on the district's property, which goes back to the comment that was shared by Mr. Remy in the repeating of the minutes, in his recitation of the minutes. So the two items for your comparison, or that will frame my comparison, stem from the overall cost for the Board of Education relocation to Obama School 3rd floor. That estimated cost came out to $2.18 million for the priority and for being initially the cost that would be needed for the initial move-in. There would be it would be necessary after the move-in to ensure that the building was brought up to code for the change of its use, additional renovation work that would be necessary. That totals somewhere over $320,000. And so in looking at the combined cost for priorities 1 and 2, we're looking at a cost that's close to about $2.5 million. We had another property that we had discussed, and the other property that we had discussed, or I had presented to the board in at a previous meeting as a possibility back in June of 2019, as a possibility for another location for the board office, would have required some demolition work. The demolition work and then the placement of that modular unit brought that total to a 2.6, slightly a little over $2.6 million, $2.68 million to be exact. And so with the not having to demolish that building,
but rather place the modular building on a different property for this of the district, then that would bring the cost down to approximately $2.1 million. It was because of that potential savings and the variables that we are able to control with regard to a prefabricated building that I made the recommendation to the board that a move that included a prefab building would save a significant amount of money for the district. So I wanted to be able to provide my rationale for that recommendation to the board tonight. Are there any questions?
Yeah, the 2.1 million cost, and that would then be either a site behind the high school or between Obama and the upper elementary. Is that correct?
That is correct. And it should be noted. I can talk now?
Yep.
You hear me?
I can hear.
Can they hear me?
They can hear you.
Okay, and it should be noted that when, and looking at making that recommendation, those code upgrades to ensure that the building's use, the change of use is supported, those were also, there's also a concern with regard to anytime we are rehabbing or renovating a structure, that there may be some unanticipated and unexpected surprises during that renovation that would likely have two impacts with that work. One would be additional costs outside of the scope that's been presented to you for unknown, we don't know, you know, potentially what might happen. And then the time frame that would be associated with whatever those unexpected renovations might entail.
Okay, so I'd like to make a comment. I know we've been kicking this around and talking about it for a couple of years now. And there's things that we have to look at. I see that this reformatting is as of January this year, but this original modular projection is from 2019. And we had a couple of discussions just because I don't want to lose athletic fields and outdoor fields for children and the optics of building an additional building when we have a building sitting empty. Also, the funding of one building would leave us lacking in funding to go back and work at Obama, because we could not leave Obama empty. We still would have to go back and do work at Obama. So I think if we can move on the resolution tonight, but also get a new workup for the modular, so we can compare 2021 specs with 2021 specs, but still move forward with the resolution of getting the architectural rendering, so we know a little bit more, because we had questions about some of the cost projections on both of the estimates. So I would like to discuss this in Buildings and Grounds and bring this back next month when we have more information.
Madam President, I have a comment. It's Barbara Lisinski.
Go ahead, Ms. Lozinski.
I agree with Ms. Etienne about going back to Buildings and Grounds. These documents we got just today, and I think it'd be a benefit for even the Buildings and Grounds Committee to walk through Obama with the architect to discuss some of these items that are on here, because there are a few minor things that I think that our maintenance department can take care of, including painting and wall repair. Ceiling tiles, I know we have ceiling tiles in our district. It's not going to cost any money. I don't know if we really need to replace every interior door for $97,000. I think there's some things that can be penciled off here on this estimate, and to get an understanding about what the architect and the administration talked about when they walked through the building on the third floor. Because as a third floor only, I just think $2 million to renovate a third floor when we just emptied the school that had teachers and students in it is a little bit, maybe a little bit excessive. I just think it would be better to go back and talk about all this at Buildings and Grounds. To put a modular up, I think that's adding a building to our district, like with an empty building sitting there, that it's kind of in contrary to what our legislative services audit, legislative district audit had said, that we should be housing central office in a district-owned building. I don't think they intended us to purchase a new building, prefab, and put it on our property and leave one of our buildings empty. So I think to be a little bit conscious of having an empty building and actually using it, we're, like Ms. Etienne said, we have to do maintenance on that building anyway. It's going to have renovations. Even if somebody else comes in there, we're responsible as a landlord when they use it. I think it's a good idea to go forward with the Obama plan to see what it really is going to cost and what it all entails.
Has a hand up.
Madam President,
Yes.
I'd just like to make a comment at this point. Obviously, the board is going to make its own decision in terms of which choice they're going to move ahead with. However, let me stress the fact that once you get the financing straightened out as to how much you need and how you are going to move ahead with this, I just want to caution the board that there is an issue, a very important issue with the Obama choice. And that is that it is a very, very old building that I am certain, much like a house, the minute you start to take it apart, you're going to have cost after cost added. My concern is that once the financing for this is in place, you have a question. If you run into higher costs because of some of the unexpected, let me say, points that even the architect hasn't anticipated, you have a problem as to where you're going to get that additional money. It's not like financing, even for that matter, through a referendum, because you can, through an referendum, at times put in monies that might cover any. In fact, it's required, I think, is it not, Adam, that still that in a referendum, there be an additional 10% or whatever it is that's in the different line items?
I can't say with certainty that it's still there. I'd have to look into that.
Okay, but I know that it was there, and there is a percentage that they usually require in a referendum that you budget for, and that's for this very point that I'm attempting to make here, that because you're not going, through normal financing, let's say through a referendum, please be very careful that we don't find ourselves in a situation, and especially Asbury, where you've now run into let's say, an additional asbestos cost or whatever it is, plumbing, electricity, and that we now need another 500,000 or $1 million, and there's no place to get it. So that's my only comment.
I do have an appreciation for your comment, Ms. Morris. I would just like, one of the issues is that, yes, Barack Obama is a very old building, but we didn't vacate the building. We still had it in service up until June, and we didn't empty out the building because there was something wrong in the building. We emptied it out because we had a lack of enrollment. At this point, I would still want to see a workup for the modular. It's just that this one is from 2019, and as we know, costs change on materials all the time. And also, this is a workup for demolition. So I know that I would assume that the $500,000 would be leaving, but you would still have to do a slab and foundation if you were depositing a modular. So I would just like to see a more updated modular projection, number one, but I do still prefer Barack Obama because we can't just let the building go empty anyway. If we did a modular, we still have issues in that building that we would have to fix because we wanted to repurpose it. So if we're going to repurpose it, we still have to go in there and fix issues. So we're still going to run into everything that you mentioned if that so exists. Mr. LaRocca?
Yeah, yes, I'm fine with, I understand you want to take this back to building and grounds. Just a couple quick questions. I drove by Wall and Belmar because they had modular, and I got to admit they looked a lot better than I thought, but they are small. Do we have any data on modular prefab kind of building that would be as large as what we would need? Do we know of a district that has that and done that? Number one. And number two, I think I asked Jeff this on the tour. The elevator currently in Obama is fine, functional, and there are not issues there, or are there?
So
off of Carol's point, that's 250,000 right there. We got an elevator problem.
Right. So for your first question, I'm not aware of another district off the top of my head that, would need about 10,000, 9,000 square feet of space. But we could certainly try and speak to the architect and some other folks to see if we can determine if there is a comparable that we could look at or talk to and what the cost was and et cetera. In terms of the elevator at Obama, similar to the one at the middle school, there were issues with it. We continue to maintain it. It is old. The building obviously is 100 years old, and the elevator has been there for quite some time. The current estimate on the spreadsheet that you have shows a refurbishment of the car itself. SOSA has been diligent in sure that the maintenance has been upkept. However, again, it's an aging unit and would have to be evaluated by the architect in terms of their best recommendation, which, as you noted, include a replacement.
Okay. Yeah, and my final comment would just be what I'm concerned about is just as we talked about the taxi, you anticipate negative feedback from people. I think going to the Madam President's point, if you say Obama is too old a building, we run the risk of getting hit between the eyes with the statement, well, then why are you keeping it? And I think if it seems like the administration from day one said, let's keep it. We want to keep it. I think my current bias is we've got to be using it a lot soon. Thank you.
Ms. Etienne, I have
Angela has a question.
Thank you. One of my concerns is the furnace. I don't see it listed here. So did I miss that?
No, it's part of the HVAC, which is a similar concern. That furnace is dated 1918.
Right.
And so we're considering and concerned about HVAC issues because we have used the Obama School 10 months for student use. Mm-hmm. Converting it to central office means it will be 12-month use. And so we have to ensure that the HVAC and the whole heating, ventilation, air conditioning is up to code to accommodate that, especially in the times that we're in right now during this global pandemic.
So here's where, I understand and I appreciate Madam President as well as, Chairman Dominic LaRocca, we have to use the building. But my concern is, as the state monitor has said, there may be some expenses that we haven't really looked at. As you know, my husband worked for the New Jersey Natural Gas. He had once serviced that building. That furnace, several years old, 100 years old. The pipes, the block that it sits on is asbestos. So when and the pipe is wrapped or in asbestos according to him. So that's a concern, and that's an expense that we have not considered. So these numbers, or this number here, may not be accurate. So perhaps, as Madam President said, maybe we do need to have a new write-up so that we can take that into consideration regarding that furnace to see what that cost would be.
Well, what I would recommend is that Buildings and Grounds and Finance maybe do another walkthrough with the architect and ask pertinent questions, especially with all the write-ups on here, and we get an accurate number, as well as the modular and updated number, because like I said, it's 2019. So if all this can go back to Buildings and Grounds so that we can really take a look at it. But I know that time is of the essence. And this is a conversation that we have been having and we have not made much movement on over the past couple of years. So definitely I had planned on having a resolution and a final direction tonight for Barack Obama. But like I said, this can go back to Buildings and Grounds and they can work hand in hand with the architect and do a walkthrough and ask the pertinent questions and maybe pencil through some expenses like Madam Vice President said. And we can also compare apples to apples when we're looking at the modular proposal. But like I said, with the modular, my concern is taking more real estate away from the children of Asbury Park. So there's concerns on both sides of what we're looking at. So I believe that it should go back to Buildings and Grounds. Buildings and Grounds should look at a updated proposal of the modular and definitely walk through with the architect and kind of figure out where our real costs are.
May I have a question?
Sure.
Do we have any plans, or what are the plans for the Barack Obama for the first, second floor? Do we have plans for that, Madam Superintendent?
We're still looking for community partnerships. We have had some conversations with some nonprofits. I did have a gentleman that was interested in looking at the building, but it would be the concern around just having air conditioning, for example, for 12-month use.
Thank you.
I will also add to your point that the walkthrough, the district architects, attachment one, I'm going to refer to that one as attachment one. In other words, the one that does not have the modular cost on it did include a walkthrough, a very recent walkthrough of the district. And so when we talk about not accurate or not the most current cost, the question is not about what's on that paper. It's more so the cost that would be associated with doing what's on that paper.
No, when I spoke about the current cost, I talked about the modular, because that's 2019, that estimate.
Yeah, I was referring to the comment about Ms. Anderson made about the potential for, I don't know what the pipes might be wrapped in, all of those other things, and how it may push the timeline down. Those are things that we would not be able to know until we actually begin that work.
Madam President, can I make a comment when Ms. Gray's done?
I'm finished.
Just want to, I don't know, many board members weren't here when the Obama school was vacated when the state monitor was Bruce Rodman, and the kids were consolidated into the other classrooms in the schools, and then the alternative school was housed there as long as the parent center. And then in 2014, the school was reopened to regular classrooms. And before that reopening, there was $500,000 of expenses that the district had to make sure certain things were done to that district, including additional remediation. So I just want to remind people that of some of the work that had been done that maybe the architect doesn't know. And I know that there are still some plans around or some documents that show what was done previously. So there's some information that Buildings and Grounds could have about what was already done and how it was done. Maybe gives them a little bit of some of the ideas that could cut costs when reviewing this.
Okay, so this is going to be referred back to Buildings and Grounds, and we'll discuss it again next board meeting.
Madam President. I just want to say that I do agree with you with that. I do feel as though we do need a walkthrough and really understanding what we're dealing with the asbestos as well. Also, because we're all just hearing, you know, so let's really get an update. And then, like Mr. Zinsky said, there was work done that the architect may not know. So it may not be as bad as, you know, as we think it is, you know. So I think another walkthrough, you know, is fair to do. And so hopefully we'll have that update in the next meeting.
Can I ask, did the architect have a history of what was done with in the building? Like, we're assuming that the architect doesn't know what happened there, but like, does he have like a log or some sort of a compendium of any improvements that were done when Ms. Lizinski was referring to when the alternative school was there, and there were certain things that needed to get done? Do we know if the architect has a I don't know what you would call it, I guess a log or a list of those improvements?
Right, so there is no log, unfortunately, or Barack Obama book that just shows the improvements made to that. We can go back through some of the project work with our building and ground supervisor and review some of that. When we did reopen the building, the abatement was based on a very specific roof leak that caused some damage in terms of asbestos. So we did not abate the entire building. We only abated those issues and areas that needed to be attended to. When we reopened the building, a lot of the work what was done was new furniture, new paint, a little bit of flooring where there might have been a tile, you know, cracked or chipped or whatever, where we would do a room or a section. There was some electronics work done in terms of the electronics closet, so servers and routers and those sorts of things, as well as installing smart boards. So that's the type of work that was done to bring the building back a little bit and to bring up the tools for our staff to use to teach our students. In terms of the walkthrough that happened over the summer with the architect, the approach was, this is the third floor, this is where we're considering central office. We walked through each room on the floor and asked the architect what she thought needed to be done to bring, to be repaired or changed to make it appropriate office space for central office.
I think one of the, if I could, sorry. I think one of the concerns that I have is the fact that before we go into investing in something that's like a modular thing, especially one that's that big, and I do agree that we should look and see if there's any other examples of modulars that big, is the fact that I think a lot of folks will want to know why Barack Obama School is still laying fallow and empty, and underutilized. So that's my big concern, is that and also the fact that it is centrally located in a spot where a lot of the majority of families live, and they can walk to it as well, as opposed to walking to a modular building over by the high school. So I think also in terms of convenience and just utilizing the existing properties as much as possible are the concerns that I have. And I'd love to see, you know, the vision of what we had been talking about for a few years, to making it an active hub for the Southwest Quadrant is still on the table. So let's do a walkthrough.
Any additional questions or comments? So at this point, like I said, I think this is going back to buildings and grounds, and we will be talking about it in February. Superintendent's report.
Just briefly, I want to just report on a couple of items. First and foremost, I want to thank the Asbury Park Toy Drive for their wonderful donation of 10 trees to beautify our property. It just looked so lovely. I was so delighted to actually be a witness to it and to see all of that, to see the beautification underway. So thank you so much to the Asbury Park Toy Drive for thinking about the Asbury Park School and for making those trees home a part of our district. Also, just wanted to report out on how much the bringing in and the transition of our students back into the district has been met so positively. I want to thank the APEA, that's our Teachers Union Association, and our APPASA, our Administrators Association, for supporting such a wonderful transition back into our hybrid instruction. Our students and our families are so delighted to be a part of it. The data that I have included for the board members' review is just a quick snapshot of, the return into the district. And many thanks to the board for supporting the transition back. I know we are all actively watching and seeing what's going on across our nation and even within our state. And so at a time like this, where the educators, the administrators, and all have come together to ensure that our children have a space to return to for some sort of normalcy, has really been significant. You'll see that it's reflected as well in the data that I shared with you. More than 50% of our parents and families want to have an in-person instruction experience. And so you'll see that we are up to 1,011 total hybrid, 92 for full in-person, and the full in-person is for our students in pre-K, special ed, so any student that has an IEP, as well as for our level 1 English learners. So we have 92 of them in person. And then we know that our governor has given us, has afforded families full unconditional opportunity for a full remote experience. And for those families for whom that is still an option, we have 487 of them that are on the full virtual option. So I just wanted to share with you how wonderfully received the transition back into the schools has been, and that completes my superintendent's report.
Thank you very much. We'd like to open the floor up for public participation in accordance with the board policy 0167. You have 3 minutes. You can either raise your hand or send in an email, and just state your name and your address. We had a hand up before we went into regular meeting. So.
At this time, there's no emails to our public comment email box. Mr. Brannigan, do you see any comments or callers using the *3 function?
Yes, I have a Trace Rogers. I'm going to unmute right now.
Good afternoon, Tracy Rogers, Sewell Avenue. First off, the question, has the city reached an agreement? I mean, has the district reached an agreement with the city on how much they will contribute to the school from their pilot programs or any resources financially for the budget for this budget year? Also, the second question is, I know in October, districts have to provide the final numbers to the state as to how many students are in this year. Can we get a count of that number tonight? Also, this seems to be very, I'm sitting here listening that we're talking about, we know we have to reduce millions of dollars, and we haven't really come up with a real assessment on what we're going to do. And moving out of a building, moving into a building that's empty, and talking about rebuilding a building and a $97,000 door re-entry and tiles. We're in a situation where we need to get things done, and sometimes it's not going to always look pretty. And we have to have multiple assessments on all these projects that are going on. And I think there should be more community input. And I would definitely not be at some of these building and ground meetings to talk about, we need more assessments on what we're going to be doing by putting these buildings, creating a modular, 2.6 million. What is the difference between this modular and going into this other building where we're moving equipment? And what's the equipment moving if it's 2.4 million? It doesn't seem to be adding up. And I think I'm a very rational person. When you sit down, and we should have full analysis of every cost that we're talking about building, and not walking around with a architect to say what's going to make this look better. You got to move into an office. You need a phone, and you need a computer. That's what we need to get back to educating these kids. And this is what we need to get done. And I want to see a real analysis of everything that's going on with this whole district. We have 4 or 5 buildings. Let's look at what we knew. The audit came in and told us that we had to move these kids to one building to make it cheaper. So we need a real analysis on what's going on. Thank you. And if you could answer your question.
Yeah.
Sure. So your question on the pilot contribution. Pilots are an arrangement between the city and the developer, and there is no inclusion of contributions from that pilot to the school district. So at this time, there is no arrangement like that. You talked about the final October number. I believe the final reported number was 2,095 total students in the district. In terms of moving central office, I don't know.
In terms of moving central office, I don't know if you heard this part, that it's going back to buildings and grounds so that we can get more accurate numbers because of the 2 estimates that we're looking at. There's about a 1.5 year difference between the comparisons.
Mr. Brannigan, do we have anybody else?
At this time, no one has raised their hand.
And we still do not have any other emails.
Okay, so at this time, we will close public participation.
Closing public participation at 7:47.
And we will be receiving the state monitor's report.
There's no report.
Okay, item 10, our Vice President will be reading.
Thank you, Ms. Etienne. This month is School Board Recognition Month, and I'd like to read the resolution for the record. Whereas the New Jersey School Boards Association has declared January 2021 to be School Board Recognition Month, a time when all residents can acknowledge the contributions made by our local school board members. And whereas the Asbury Park Board of Education is one of 580 local school boards in New Jersey, which sets policy, oversees operations for public school districts. And whereas the Asbury Park Board of Education embraces the goal of high quality education for all New Jersey public school students. And whereas the New Jersey local school boards help determine the educational goals for approximately 1.4 million children in pre-kindergarten through 12th grade. And whereas the New Jersey's 5,000 local school board members who receive no remuneration for their services act as advocates for public school students as they work with administrators, teachers, and parents for the betterment of public education. And whereas school boards strive to provide the resources necessary to meet the needs of all students, including those with special needs, and whereas boards of education provide accountability to the public, they communicate the needs of school district to the public, and they convey to school administrators the public's expectations for the schools. And whereas New Jersey can take pride in its schools, which rank among the nation's best in key achievement indicators, such as the National Assessment of Educational Progress Scores and the preparation for college through advanced placement offerings and SAT assessments. Now, therefore be it resolved that the Asbury Park Board of Education does hereby recognize the services of local school board members through New Jersey as we join communities statewide in observing January 2021 as School Board Recognition Month, and be it further resolved that the Asbury Park Board of Education urges all New Jersey citizens to work with their local school boards of education and public school staffs towards the advancement of our children's education.
President, we don't vote on it. I just wanted to revisit one thing. Can we have a quick reporting on the board goals? Mr. Garillo?
There we go. Now you can hear me. Hold on one second. I'm just pulling it up. I just lost it on my computer here. There was a revision that I sent regarding board goal number 2. Did we want to talk about, Madam President, did we want to talk about the other board goals as well, or do you want to go straight into board goal 2?
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to do board goal 1 first?
No, you can go. You're off of mute.
Okay. All right. All right. So with board goal 2, that was communications and accountability to the board. That was assigned to me and Madam Board President, and we had come up with three bullet points with some subsets to it related to the timeliness of information requests to the administration. We revised this a few times, taking feedback from the board, and we came up with these three bullet points. So one is timeliness of information requests to the administration. That includes administration must address requests of information to a board member within 24 to 48 hours of the request. If the request requires more time, the requesting board member or board members should be notified within those 24, 48 hours of the reason for the delay and expected time of request fulfillment. If the request is made at a board meeting and is not fulfilled before the subsequent board meeting, it must be reported on its progress at that meeting and each subsequent board meeting until it's fulfilled. And the request will remain as old business on the agenda until it's fulfilled. In addition, the board should be appraised by the superintendent on a regular basis, the progress in meeting his or her merit goals. we feel that this is important, so that way we can kind of keep track and see what's being hit on those goals. Point number 2 is the procedure for board members' information requests to the administration. And what we decided was that any request or question shall be asked in committee or at a board meeting. Otherwise, it should be relayed through the president or the VP. And the reason for this was just so everyone's on the same track in terms of any requests or questions, and that the president and the VP are appraised of what's going on. And then the final point was about any kind of consequences to any non-compliance of timely information requests. And this is something that the policy committee is going to be asked to report on. It's more just in terms of best practices and guidelines to see how other school districts and what Strauss Esme has to say about, if anything, on that. So that's board goal number 2, that essentially has to do with effective communications and accountability vis-a-vis the board and the administration.
Thank you, Mr. Grillo. Are there any questions or comments? Okay, can we have board goal number 1? I think, is that Ms. Lozinski?
Yes, that is communicating our story. I did look at other districts in Monmouth County and the state about whether they have some sort of, I guess you would call it like a profile or bio of board members with their picture on their websites. And indeed they do. And I think it's a nice idea that when the community goes on and, the parents and et cetera go on our district website, that if they are interested in looking who the Board of Ed members are and what they're all about, that they have some information about, whether community service or what they do. And I did speak to Mr. Hastings about getting new photos of everybody, and then asking board members to get a little summary about themselves a little bit so they can go on the district website. Right now, I did also talk with some other updates with the website, and so far that's all we got in our board goal number 1. So if everybody can think of a little bit about themselves that they want to share on our website, I think it's a nice little addition.
Sounds great. Ms. Lozinski, aren't you? I'm sorry.
I was going to say I'm all for that's Joe. I'm all for new pictures, especially after COVID.
That's all of us. So Ms. Lozinski, you're also is it you and Ms. Breach on number 3, or you and Mr. LaRocca?
Mr. LaRocca is the lead on number 3.
Mr. LaRocca?
Yeah, number 3 is updates with regard to budget. I think we've touched on some of that in the workshop today. We're running a little bit behind, but we're seeing in terms of, and we can provide a little more information, but the savings throughout the year we've been able to accumulate. We've got resignations and retirements. Will determine we're coming close to determining our revenue. Is Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, but the administration feels confident we can balance next year's budget without options that would be along the lines of looking at outsourcing and that sort of thing. And again, we have some information on that, but we'll continue to give more information as we move into February, so the board has a general sense of how the budget's going to be presented and balanced with the loss of the adjustment aid in March.
Thank you, Mr. LaRocca. I also have another suggestion. I think because the budget is going to be an issue again in March, I think we should look at maybe putting together a town hall or something to get ahead of the changes that are going to happen with the taxes, and just give the community an update of everything that's going on in the school district. So
that's not a bad idea. I think that's a good idea.
I don't think we can argue against getting information and communication out to the public for people to understand the rules we're operating under, what all the improvements we've made, and right. And then here's the news with regard to cuts and revenue increases, whether you want to do a town hall or just somehow get information out in another way. I'd agree with that.
Okay, so if you and Ms. Lozinski want to kind of work on that, because it is part of her goal also. I think Joe is pretty good at that.
Oh, that took an ugly turn. All right. Barb and I will talk about that and connect with the administration. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Madam President, you should prepare probably to have a special meeting for that town hall if we come up with a date of some sort too to do that.
Okay, I can call you tomorrow and we can put the finishing touches on that. Okay, so at this time, I would like to. We have closed session.
Can we get a motion for acceptance of the minutes 11A through D on A2?
Move it.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Lozinski, second by Ms. Etienne. Ms. Lozinski?
Yes.
Ms. Etienne?
Yes.
Ms. Alves Anderson?
Yes.
Ms. Breach?
Yes.
Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Mr. Grillo?
Yes.
Mr. LaRocca?
Yes.
Mr. Remy?
Yes.
Mr. Saunders? Thank you. Motion carries.
Okay, at this time, we'll be going into closed executive session. Mr. Wise, if you want to brief everyone on the reason.
Sure. So pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act, the board will be going into executive session to discuss litigation, contracts, negotiation, and other matters that require attorney-client privilege and advice. It's anticipated that tonight's executive session will last between 20 and 30 minutes, at least at this point. And Mr. Hastings, if you have, or Madam President, if you have the resolution to read, that would be terrific.
Yes. Whereas the Open Public Meetings Act allows for the exclusion from discussion at the public portion of a meeting of a certain matter as outlined below, and whereas the Asbury Park Board of Education wishes to discuss such matters made and will make such discussions public when a proper conclusion has been reached. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the January 28th, 2021 at Asbury Park, New Jersey, for the purpose as outlined and described below, upon return, action may be taken. May I have
I'll move it.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Ms. Lozinski?
Yes.
Mr. Grillo?
Yes.
Ms. Alves Anderson?
Yes.
Ms. Breach?
Yes.
Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Mr. LaRocca?
Yes.
Mr. Remy?
Yes.
Mr. Saunders? And Ms. Etienne?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Madam President, we're going to be going into Zoom, correct? We're going to exit out of this one and go into the Zoom?
Yes.
Before we do that, for the members of the public, if we could just clarify whether or not we'll be coming back into this WebEx meeting at the conclusion of the Zoom meeting, or if we'll be adjourning directly from Zoom.
We still have an agenda to vote on.
There you go. Okay. Thank you. There's your answer. We'll be coming back into the WebEx meeting. Thank you.
Ms. Cook?
Here.
Mr. Grillo? Did I see Mr. Grillo?
He's on.
Oh, okay. Mr. Rocca?
Here.
Mr. Remy?
Here.
Mr. Saunders? Gotcha. Ms. Lozinski?
Here.
And Ms. Etienne?
Here. Madam Superintendent, would you like to ask for a consent agenda?
I'm requesting a consent agenda for items B1 to B5, including all attachments.
Oh,
Second. Second. Question.
Any questions? No? Okay. Roll call, please, Mr. Hastings.
This is for all items B1 to B5. Ms. Lozinski?
yes.
Ms. Alves Anderson?
Yes.
Ms. Breach?
Yes, but abstain on B2, 2A, B, and C.
Thank you. Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Mr. Grillo? Is that a yes, Mr. Grillo? Yes. Mr. LaRocca?
Yes.
Mr. Remy? Mr. Saunders? Yes, thank you. Ms. Etienne?
Yes, however, I'm abstaining on B1, item A.
All motions carry.
Okay, Mr. Hastings, would you like to ask for consent agenda?
Yes, Madam President. Could I have a motion for all items C1, number 1 to C3, number 8?
Move it.
Second.
Any questions? Roll call, please, Mr. Hastings.
Ms. Alves Anderson?
Yes.
Ms. Breach?
Yes.
Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Mr. Grillo? Yes, I see, okay. Mr. LaRocca?
Yes.
Mr. Remy? Mr. Saunders? Thank you. Ms. Lozinski?
Yes.
And Ms. Etienne.
Yes.
All motions carry.
Now, before I ask for a motion to close, I wanted to just thank everyone for their participation tonight on my first official board meeting as the president. One of the last things I'm going to do is set up a mentorship for the 2 brand new board members. I wanted to, I did speak to Miss Anderson, Miss Alves Anderson. And well, okay, I'll start with Remy. So Remy, I would like you to be mentored by Mr. LaRocca, I did ask him, and Ms. Lazinski. Reason being, Mr. LaRocca knows a lot about finance, and that's your lane. And Ms. Lazinski knows a lot about everything. So I wanted to set you up with them too. If you have any questions, if you have any concerns, if there's certain things that you need to figure out how to navigate, one of them will be able to direct you in the right direction. You do have the phone number. Did we send the confidential? So you have their phone numbers on the confidential list. Are you okay with that, Mr. LaRocca? And Ms. Lazinski?
Yes.
Okay. And then Ms. Cook, I wanted to set you up with myself and Ms. Alves Anderson. It would have been Ms. Carol Jones, but she's not here anymore, but she did curriculum and instruction. But again, if you have any questions, any concerns, feel free to contact one of us. Okay, at this time, I would like to ask for a motion to close.
Motion to close.
Wow, that was fast. Need a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Gooch.
Thank you.
All in favor? Any nays?
Aye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank
Good night,
you.
everybody. Stay well.
Good job. Good job.
Good night, everyone.
Yeah, end them all before they close something out.